Yeah.
There was one thing that kind of made me laugh in the book. Well, there were several things, but I love this one part. Nicole refused Charlie's proposal because the ring contained a lab-grown diamond. And I don't know if she says it or thinks it, but she says, I wonder what kind of woman will wear the lab-grown diamond. Probably a flannel-wearing, Subaru-driving nature lover who will love the lab-grown diamond as much as accompanying him to the fair for his beard contest. That cracked me up.
Welcome to the Bookish Introverts podcast. Join host Amazon bestselling author Brett Nelson and avid reader Melanie Dyer as they dive in to review books they've read, then chat with the amazing authors behind them. Quiet minds, big bookshelves. You don't want to miss it.
Hey everyone, it's Brett and Melanie. We are back for another book talk today. And today we are discussing Fiancé Finale by author Angela Ruth Strong. And luckily for us, she's actually with us today.
Yes. One of my favorite things is talking to my fellow authors. It's just, I enjoy kind of reaching out to them. And so this is a good day for us. We're excited. So welcome in, Angela. Come on in and say hi to everybody.
Hi guys.
So we'll get started. Yeah, we'll get started by doing just a little short bio on you, and then we'll just kind of take it from there. So Angela works as a flight attendant and uses her own crazy life experiences as an inspiration for the stories she writes. Her books have earned top pick in the Romantic Times, have been nominated for a Christie Award, won the Cascade Award, and she has become an Amazon bestselling author. She and her husband also got to play extras when her novel Finding Love in Big Sky was adapted for film.
That's pretty
And
cool.
to help aspiring authors, she started IdahopeWriters.com, where she lives in Idaho. So sounds like you got some cool things going on.
For sure.
Having fun with it. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, Cascade Awards. I've heard of Christie Awards. That's a pretty cool award in Christian fiction. That's basically the equivalent of an Academy Award for Christian fiction writers. So I know that one. I'm not sure about Cascade Award. Tell us what that is.
The Cascade Award is through what used to be Oregon Christian Writers. They're now the Cascade Christian Writers. That was where I went to my very first writing conference. That helped me get my very first agent. And for a while, they were doing Cascade Awards where they awarded books, kind of like the Christie Awards, but now they are the awards are just for unpublished work. So that's probably why you haven't heard of it.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, that sounds cool. Now I'm really intrigued by the movie adaptation. How did that happen? I mean, every writer dreams of seeing their characters come alive on the screen. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen?
Well, according to Donald Moss, who's an agent that has written a bunch of books, in his book, The Emotional Craft of Fiction, he talks about how all authors have different goals, and those who dream of getting movie adaptations, they are the misguided ones. So when I read that, I wrote to my critique partner who was reading the book as well, and I was like, "Isn't it fun being misguided?" So, so that was definitely a dream of mine.
We will all be misguided together.
Yeah. And it was my very first book that got optioned, which was actually Love Finds You in Sun Valley. And it was a part of a bunch of books set across the country by all different authors. I was brand new, so I kind of got sucked into that. And I knew they had made a couple movies of the Love Finds You series, but I didn't know that mine had been optioned. And it wasn't until I saw the third one being made into a movie and I saw the author was like hanging out with this actress at a film festival, I was like, I wonder if mine would ever get made into a movie. And so I Googled and an article popped up saying that the producer had optioned, I think, five or seven of the books. And my book was the first one. Like, I hadn't even clicked on the article and I saw my character's name and I was like, this isn't real. I'm imagining things. And then I read the article and it said my book had been optioned and I didn't even know because my publisher had to have the rights at that time. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, so I didn't know. And
so the publisher doesn't communicate stuff like that to the author?
Well, it was an interesting situation because this publisher sold to another publisher who ended up shutting down that publishing company. And so there was a disconnect, and my agent and I had split ways at that time. And so but I did contact her and she didn't even know about it. So it was just like, I was the last to know anything, but I was so
Thank
excited.
goodness for the news, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just started telling people, my book's going to be made into a movie, though I had no clue what was going on. And I was at a smaller conference with Marilee Farrell, who wrote some of the Love Finds You books as well. And she ended up starting her own publishing company, Mountain Brook Inc. And so I was like, my book's going to be made into a movie. And she did know what was going on. So she's like, Angela, let me tell you how this works. So what had happened is the producer and the director had parted ways. And the director had really liked Marilee's books and contacted Marilee and said, we want to keep making these books into movies, but we need you to get your rights back and re-release it rather than Love Finds You in as Finding Love in. And so that's why she started her own publishing company, just to re-release her books. And then she decided to help out other authors. So I was one of the first. And she's like, okay, Angela, get your rights back. I'll help you get your rights back and we'll re-release it. And you can write some more of these books. And so they decided not to do Sun Valley because it had whitewater rafting, which is a little more dangerous and more expensive for a producer's budget. So my book, Finding Love in Big Sky, was optioned before it even released, which was really cool. But it took 5 years for them actually to start filming. And every year they'd say, we're going to film this year. We're going to film this year. And every year I'd have more, less and less hope. So the fifth year, I was actually in line at Walmart when I got the phone call from my publisher who said, they start filming in Montana tomorrow. And like I said, I'm like the last to know anything. So again,
and it's hard to act cool in Walmart when you get that kind of news, isn't it?
Right.
And the cashiers aren't as excited for you as you'd expect.
No, they're not. Yeah,
they're just like, who is this weird lady?
Yeah, they're like, yeah, great, get out of my line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's
so
exciting.
I ran home to tell my husband, and it was right after COVID, and they said because of COVID, it's going to be really strict. Only you can come on the set for a day. And I said, okay, but do you need extras? And so then they let my husband come, and we danced in the cowboy ball scene, which was like a dream of mine. And it was just, they made me feel like VIPs. And I have author friends who have had their books made into movies and haven't gotten that treatment. But the actors were just amazing. And I did ask the director, we went to breakfast with him the last day, and I was like, are the actors always this great? And she's like, no. She said, you got really lucky. But they were so sweet. And I have to tell you my favorite part. So it was surreal being on the set, because I was like, I felt like I knew things. I'm like, that's Josh's car, blah, blah. Like, I was just like calling stuff out because I created this world.
Yeah.
And
nobody knows it better than you.
Right. They did change some stuff, and I had seen the script ahead of time. So it was a real learning experience how that works. But I saw the big red truck, and I was like, that's Big Red, and it breaks down because I wanted it to break down. And somebody's like, Angela, actually, it really did break down. It broke down during the filming of the breakdown scene, which I just thought was too funny. Okay, but here's my favorite part. So I was excited to dance in the cowboy ball scene. And it's like a Hallmarkish movie. And I'm saying Hallmarkish because it's actually on Amazon Prime. But my husband he's a motorcycle rider, used to play football. That's not his dream to dance in a Hallmarkish movie.
I can imagine not, yeah.
I understand.
So he brought
But he took one for the team anyway.
Oh, yeah, he was great. He was fabulous. But he brought his coveralls with the hope that he could be in the mechanic scene. They weren't filming the mechanic scene when we were there, but he was joking with the actress about it. And she's like, oh, they could green screen you in. I was like, they're not going to green screen you in. But then when we watched the movie, she calls back into her garage and to a Jim, which is my husband's name. And I was like, oh. And I messaged her. I said, did you add Jim's name for my husband? And she's like, yeah, I asked the director if I could. And they said yes.
Oh,
and
my
so that's
gosh.
my favorite part. I know. That was my favorite
It's a
part
little
of the whole movie.
homage to your husband.
That's great.
Yeah, that is so
it was
cool.
so sweet.
Now, I'm not a huge on actors. This girl is. Who is kind of the main actors in the movie? Yeah.
Hedy Nasser was the heroine, and I follow them all on Instagram now, so I get to keep up with what they're doing. She was just in an Anne Hathaway movie. So it's kind of fun to be like, I know her.
Yeah,
And then,
she was in my movie.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Stoddard played the hero, and he has been doing more Hallmarkish movies, so you might recognize his face. And then Nathan Ken, you can follow him on Instagram as what is it? Something about the cat, the cat lady, Nathan the cat lady. He loves cats, and and he is such a hoot. And I don't know if he's still dating her, but he started dating the horse trainer on the movie, and I was like, he really did find love in Big Sky.
So see, you did a lot of good things for a lot of good people unknowingly.
It was fun.
Yeah. Did any of them like give you a shout out or anything, like on Instagram or anything like that that you know of?
Yeah, Hetty posted a picture of all of us. So I took my some books, because I wanted to see if I could get the actors to sign the books. So they all signed them, and they're like, do we get one? And so I ended up giving them all books. And I got a picture with them in the books, and Hetty posted it, and she's like, the author's on set today. What a dream. And I was like, really? That's your dream?
So see, even they have dreams too.
That's
cool. Yeah. You know, little known fact, my very first book was optioned for Netflix, and it came this close.
Wow.
It came down between me and 4 other authors' books, and it came so close. Yeah, and it's still technically under option, but at this point I'm kind of like you. I'm kind of like, I don't think it'll ever happen, but it's kind of a cool thing. So yeah,
so it could still happen then. You could be in line at Walmart.
Exactly.
Get that call.
Yeah. Well, you want to ask anything? I've been bogarting the guest.
Now, of course, when I imagine when most of us were growing up, they were called, a stewardess was like a super glamorous, and that's what they were called then, because they got to travel the world and they had the cool little uniforms and everything like that. Did you always want to be like a flight attendant, and how long have you been one?
I do love traveling the world, though. Our airline just is basically the 50 states, Canada, Mexico, and Bahamas. But because I love to travel, I became a gate agent a while ago when my kids were still in high school. And so that was very part-time, but it gave me flight benefits. So I was able to take him to Disneyland, and I took my oldest daughter to London and Paris for graduation. And so I was a gate agent. And then when they all graduated, I kind of went through a midlife crisis. They graduated, and then I went through breast cancer, and I survived. And then, which was great, but it's like, okay, why am I still here? And then my book got made into a movie, which was also great. But it's like, okay, my dream came true. Now what? So it was a bit of a midlife crisis. Yeah. Like what's left for me? So that's when I became a flight attendant, and it's been 2.5 crazy years.
So how is it being a flight attendant post 9/11? I guess you weren't a flight attendant at the time of 9/11. So like, is it kind of scary as a flight attendant to after in post 11?
We were trained. I don't know how well the training is, but and we have
that's one of those things you can't really train for.
Yeah. We were trained in self-defense. We have protocols for like if the pilot has to come out and use the bathroom, stuff like that. But for me, it's more about being a flight attendant in post-COVID, because 9/11, that's been a long time. So post-COVID, I was working when we still had to wear masks. I started, and then we got the message, okay, you don't have to wear masks anymore. And I remember just walking into the airport and feeling naked, and like, are people looking at me? Are people wearing their masks? Like,
I feel like I'm committing a sin.
Yeah. So on that very first flight, the other flight attendant and I, we both could decide. And so we decided that she would wear a mask and I wouldn't wear a mask, just to make everybody feel comfortable with their personal choice. but yeah, that was a crazy time for, because people were getting kicked off planes if they weren't wearing masks. And even my own husband, we were flying and he ordered some M&Ms, and he had his mask off to eat the M&Ms, and the flight attendant's like, no, you have to put the mask on between every M&M. And so
you have
I
to
have
put
a
it back
video
on
of
to
him,
chew,
like,
basically. Yeah.
yeah, he'd like, pull the mask up, eat the M&M, chew. It was just silly.
I don't know about y'all,
there's
but I'm glad those days are over.
Oh, yeah. Some people still wear masks, and I think it's great that everybody gets the choice to choose now. But yeah, that was a really big deal.
Yeah. Is it hard to balance flight attendancing and writing? How's that work?
Yeah.
So I am a reserve flight attendant. That way, if they don't call me out, I can stay home and write. And that was my plan from the beginning. Some months it's great. Like last December, I only flew 3 days, and so I got paid to stay home and write. This month has been really crazy. I think in the last 12 days, I've flown 11 days. So it's like feast or famine. And I'm trying to figure out how I can like find that happy medium.
Mm-hmm.
But I do write from the road sometimes. Like I'll have a book deadline and we're in a really cool place and the crew's going out to, like Thomas Jefferson's house or something. And I'm like, I can't go. I have to write my book. But then when I'm not writing, then I take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like as authors, we miss so much, because, and even when you don't, you have that niggling little bit of guilt that I shouldn't be doing this. I should be writing. So.
Yeah. But also in flying, I get a lot of time to read between, dump garbage pickups. I can go back and read for 10 or 15 minutes. On this last trip, the other flight attendant bought a book at the airport, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna get that book on my Kindle, and then we can have our own little book club together." We called it the Mile High Book Club because that made us laugh. But it was just it was fun to be able to do that together.
Oh wow, yeah, that's fun. Yeah, and that's another thing as an author, I don't get to read nearly as much as I like. I usually get about $4 a month in, but. Yeah, I would like to read a lot more.
That's pretty good. I think 4 books a month. That's good.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't get that many in.
Well, that's because that's because you're Miss TV person.
My problem is video games and TV.
Oh, the gaming.
The TV on.
Yeah. Well, let's branch a little bit into your books. I was surprised to hear to read that you've written 18 books. I didn't realize you had written that many. So we're going to briefly kind of just tell everybody the series of books you've written. We're going to focus on Fiancé Finale, but we'll let you give a little bit of a brief description of each of the books in that series if you want, and then we'll kind of branch into that's going to be the main focus. Since the book, for the people listening, since Fiancé Finale hasn't been published yet, I think it publishes October 20th or something like that. 22nd. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to give any spoilers. Sometimes on the podcast, we have like a little spoiler zone, but since this book hasn't published, we're going to be careful not to give any spoilers because we don't want to spoil that since it's a new book. So you've written 18 books. You've got the Love Unscripted series. Is that the one that Fiancé Finale is in?
Love Off Script. Yeah, I probably called it Love Unscripted. Sometimes
okay.
I forget my own titles.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And then we've got the caffeinated mysteries. That one looks really interesting. Is that kind of like a cozy mystery type or?
Yes. And I wrote that because the publisher I was working with at the time was working with the movie producer who said that certain networks were looking for mysteries set in coffee shops or tea houses. And so
those are my favorite books to read. Yeah. And there's a little play on words there it's caffeinated, calf, and then F-U-N in big letters, caffeinated. Yeah. So, and there's 4 books in that one. Are they? Yeah. I think you got a Christmas one in that one. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there like a Halloween one too?
Yep. And then there's Valentine's and 4th of July.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, I definitely want to check that one out. We kind of wanted to do some fun Halloween reads, but I'm kind of
Oh,
Halloween reads are kind of hard to come across in Christian
hmm
fiction. So, uh,
right.
yeah. So, okay. So then you've also got the Resort to Love series. So that's kind of
hmm
a Christian fiction romance series.
hmm
hmm And then three suspense books, thriller books are my jam. I love that style of book, so I may have to check some of these out too. So you've got three suspense books, one of which was published in the Love Inspired. So that's pretty cool.
hmm
That's a pretty big line. And then, of course, your Love Unscripted. So why don't you give the listeners, in case any of them haven't read your books, give us just a little brief synopsis of each of the books in this series, and then we'll launch into Fiancé Finale.
Okay. So the first one was husband auditions, and I had the idea for that one from a list in a 1950s magazine of ways to find a husband. You guys might have seen it. It was on social media, pretty prominent there for a while. Things like sniffling in a corner, tripping when you walk into a room, lassoing him on a street corner, just silly, silly things. And I thought, what if a modern day woman tried these things in real life in our times? And so I was at a writing conference and I shared that with my writer friends. And so they just went around looking at the list and coming up with all these crazy ideas. One of them was carry a hat box. And Peter Lavelle, who's a writer friend of mine, he writes historical and he's like a history professor. He said, "Oh, a hat box." And I was like, only you, Peter. And so I actually ended up writing him into the story. There's a Peter Lavelle historical author in my book, which was a lot of fun to
how
do.
fun.
So she tries these things, and a guy who's trying to make a name for himself as a cameraman wants to film her for a YouTube show. And he's a confirmed bachelor, and she's looking for someone to marry. So I had them fall in love, which was kind of fun. And so Kai has two roommates, and so I ended up writing, and that's the book that was nominated for a Christie Award. So then my publisher was like, "Hey, how about you write the roommates' love stories?" So in the first book, in Husband Auditions, the roommate Gemma, who's a screenplay writer, and the roommates, by the way, all went to film school together. So that's where the love off script comes from. So Gemma's a screenplay writer, and she, as us authors do, and one time I had my writer friends throw me in a trunk to see if I could escape. So we try weird things. Have you guys ever done anything like that for your writing? Have you tried funky stuff?
No, I've never tried any funky stuff yet. Yeah.
I've Googled some funky stuff.
Okay, that's probably the smarter way to go.
I hope the FBI is not watching.
Yeah.
Right. So in Gemma's situation, she does Google how to escape from being duct taped to a chair. So in Husband Audition, she has the heroine duct tape her into a chair, and she's trying to escape. And meanwhile, the neighbors notice what's going on and call the police. And so a police officer shows up, and she finds out, that they were just trying something for her writing. So anyway, in the second book, and I had some writers.
It might be a good idea to let your neighbors know you're a writer. So if you're doing anything weird, they'll at least have some context.
They'll be like, she's writing again.
Exactly. She's just being a crazy writer.
So Gemma, in the second book, Hero Debut, she goes to Citizens Police Academy as research for her writing and causes a whole lot of trouble for the cop in charge. So that was a lot of fun. And I did go to Citizens Police Academy, where we got to race cop cars through cones and all kinds of things that do end up in the story. And my writer friend, Heather Woodhaven, who lives here in Boise with me, she went with me. And the very first day in class, the police officer's like, "All right, who's the writers?" And he calls us out. And he says, he's like, "I want you to know that in real life, police officers don't take off their shirts to rescue people." Because I guess that's how Hollywood portrays them. And it was like a big deal. He had the whole class laughing. So, of course, I had to put that in the book, and that becomes a thing. So that's Hero Debut. And then in Fiancé Finale, this is the third book. I was telling my neighbor about it yesterday. She thought I said Beyonce Finale. And she's like, "Is that about Beyonce?" So now I think that every time I say the title, I'm like, my book about Beyonce. So this one, this is Charlie, and he is the third roommate, and he's a documentary writer, and he or documentary director. And so he has the opportunity to film something that he's been wanting to film, and it just happens to be the same weekend as his wedding. And he just assumes that his fiance will go with him to film this, whereas she assumes he's going to stay for the wedding and marry her, and he doesn't. He goes and films. And
I'm
so
just saying, her assumption is the correct one. I cannot imagine any guy thinking, "Oh, I'm going to scoot out the week of my wedding." That just bad move, guys.
He's got a lot to learn. So
he's got a lot to learn.
Yeah, this is all backstory, and then she moves on with her life. She gets engaged to somebody else. And the night before her wedding to the other guy, he prays, "God, if you want me to marry her, don't let her marry this other person." Just randomly prays it, forgets about it until he finds out that she actually does break off that engagement. So she's still single. And then he thinks, "Oh, great, I have to marry her now. God, it's God's will for me to marry her." And so that's where this book starts, him like hiring her PR firm to promote his documentary that he left her for.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah. Well, and you know, she actually got fired from a job because she was apparently doing a marketing scheme for like a pro golfer. Was he a pro golfer? Well, apparently he sent an inappropriate text to somebody and got canceled in today's verbiage. And so anyway,
so she was released from that contract.
Yeah. I was like, boy, that's a brutal business to get fired because of somebody else's indiscretion.
And it wasn't that she was fired. She wasn't fired from her job, but she lost that client because they didn't know.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of forced to work with Charlie at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that scene with, so the thing that she was working on, I imagined it as like a Chick-fil-A with a Tim Tebow type thing. And I didn't say their names. I just said a prominent. And so my publisher was like, "That's too close to Chick-fil-A and Tim Tebow. You need to change it." And so we ended up coming up with a pro golfer advertising slices, because that's a golf thing. Slices of pizza.
That's cute. Yeah.
It is. It's a great idea. She had a great idea to pair them up.
Yeah.
Charlie, I have to say, and if I'd had a chance to read the first two, which it was all I could do to get the third one read in time because everything's just so crazy, but not a reflection on the book, just my schedule's crazy. I would have been better prepared for Charlie. It took me, I think, I was a couple chapters in. I was like, this guy has no social cues, no social intelligence at all.
Very true.
And when I realized that, I was like, oh, okay, so I need to look at this like this is Sheldon from Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
I was like, this. Now I've got it. Now I understand. Because I was like, why was she engaged to this guy?
Yeah.
But having the backstory, I would have interacted with him more. And no, but it didn't take me long to realize that it's kind of, I don't want to say autism because you don't want to just spout those words out.
No, I had a couple readers
just
ask
no
me
social
if he was,
awkwardness.
Right. And a couple
Maybe
readers
on the
did
spectrum.
ask me if he was on the spectrum. Exactly.
Well, and apparently he's a brilliant. Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, I was just going to say I didn't plan for him to be on the spectrum, but he is patterned off somebody who could very well be undiagnosed. I just thought he was such an interesting character.
Yeah. And they say people who are on the spectrum, they have they tend to excel at certain things. And apparently he's brilliant with his documentaries. Mm-hmm. So that kind of fits. But once I realized that, I was like, oh, he's kind of an interesting character. I don't know how to take him, but his perspective is intriguing. Because he was just like, I just don't understand.
I don't want to write the alpha males that are so prevalent in romance. I want to really dig into interesting characters and have them fall in love.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And absolutely, you don't want the me man, you woman
And I'm a
do
big
their
fan
thing.
of the quirky characters. I love quirky
Mhm.
characters. Mhm.
And there was a lot to his childhood later that I think kind of informed the way he looked at things too. I
Yeah.
won't say,
So
but
So I made Nicole very not quirky. I made her very, level-headed just to balance him out. And that was fun to write that too, because my heroines in the first two books are the quirky ones. So I was changing
yes,
it up.
Yeah.
a little bit of a flip flop.
Yeah.
There was one thing that kind of made me laugh in the book. Well, there were several things, but I love this one part. Nicole refused Charlie's proposal because the ring contained a lab-grown diamond. And I don't know if she says it or thinks it, but she says, I wonder what kind of woman will wear the lab-grown diamond. Probably a flannel-wearing, Subaru-driving nature lover who will love the lab-grown diamond as much as accompanying him to the fair for his beard contest. That cracked me up.
Yes, that was a well written little
Yeah.
aside
That's
in her head.
That's very Pacific Northwest, by the way. I don't know if you guys have gotten to Oregon, Washington area where they wear the flannel and drive the Subarus and are very much about saving the earth and growing the beards. Yeah.
I figured it was fitting in with that sort of scene. I
Right.
mean, not that they're not trying to save the world, but I'm not trying to diminish what they're doing because I mean, a lot of that is important.
Yes.
The lab grown diamonds and things like that. We don't want to feed into bad things.
No.
Some people take it.
Although I didn't realize lab-grown diamonds, like, is that a bad thing? Like, if you give the woman you're wanting to marry a lab-grown diamond, is that like a
jewelry?
No? Okay. How about you? Is
It's becoming more popular. My brother did get his wife a lab-grown diamond, which is where I first heard about it. And they are in the Pacific Northwest, and she wanted the lab-grown diamond for that reason.
Really? Are they like cheaper or? They are
a little less expensive.
Okay. Well, as someone who's not married, I'm like, I need to know these things. If a lab-grown diamond is a bad thing, then I need to know that.
If it sparkles and does not turn my finger green, then I'm good.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Another interesting thing that I kind of, and again, I can't remember who said this. It says, there's been it's been my experience with God that he doesn't seem to calm the storms in my life. He just holds an umbrella over my head to protect me until the sun comes out again. I love that quote. Yeah. Was that in a quote that said that? Because sometimes I think as Christians, we think as if we're a Christian, just everything's going to just work out exactly the way we want it, and everything's just and that's just not how being a Christian is, Sometimes things don't go the way we want them to. And sometimes, God just doesn't always give us what we want. So I kind of liked that kind of.
There's no guarantee.
Yeah.
That no bad thing will come your way.
Yeah. You see Jesus calmed the storm when they were in the storm, and that was one specific example, but he may not always calm the storm in our life. So, and that doesn't make him any less faithful.
No, I'd heard it once described as grace denied and then grace supplied. So like, whereas we're denied, getting out of hard situations, there's grace supplied in the midst of that. And that really resonated with me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the Bible also tells us to count it all joy when we encounter tribulations. So, I mean, so that right there tells us, that sometimes we're just going to have to go through things. So, and just count it all joy and move on.
Just got to get to the end of the road.
Exactly.
The light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
Which seems far away sometimes.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Far away.
Yeah.
but like Charlie and Nicole's story, if he had stayed and hadn't gone to film the documentary and she just married him, they would have missed out on all the growth and all the healing that they found here. And so I do believe that grace is denied for certain reasons in our lives because God has something better for us.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that was kind of one story arc that kind of stood out to me in the book. Waiting for an apology that never comes because Nicole was waiting all this time. She felt like he owed her an apology, And I mean, that is something we can all identify with. I mean, have we not all been waiting for that apology from XO person and you never get it? And so that was kind of a small, story arc in there. Of course, when you're the one stuck waiting on that apology, that's not a small thing.
Seems like it takes forever.
Yeah. So there were some good little morsels in the book.
There really were.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And I have to say, just as an aside, I loved, I can't think of her name right now, and I don't remember if it's in the notes, but the jeweler that they worked with, I really loved her.
Oh, yeah.
Now I can't remember her name. What was her name? I'm looking in the book here. Alice. It was Alice.
I was thinking Alice, yeah.
Yeah, she was named after the Oregon state motto, which is fly with your own wings, but in Latin, Alice, something like that.
Ah.
And she had, well, I first of all, I was like, I like this lady because apparently she likes turquoise.
Oh, yeah.
And I love turquoise. I'm from New Mexico, so it's kind of a
that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of a huge thing down there. So it's like, oh, turquoise. I'm on board. I like this lady. If she likes turquoise already. Top 5
Very
character
cool.
right there. But I really enjoyed her scenes. They were.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And I thought they were beautifully written as well.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Gave her, she doesn't have a whole lot of time in the book, but it gave us insight into her character.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I wove
really
it in
enjoyed
there.
her.
Yeah, good.
And I also liked the little interaction somewhere toward the end of the book when Nicole encounters Dante, and she kind of, you would kind of, your initial reaction for something like that is like, you totally destroyed my campaign, with your stupidity, blah, blah, blah. But they had kind of a nice little moment, where she kind of encourages him and says, go back to your wife, make, and I really liked that.
I wasn't expecting him to show back up.
Well, in all honesty,
No.
I thought, because, I really kind of thought Dante was going to be like the love interest. I kind of thought it was going to be one of those love hate. Yeah, I thought that she was going to hate him, blah blah blah, and then at some point they're going to encounter each other and kind of slowly fall in love, because that's how a lot of stories like this go. So that was actually kind of what I expected.
He was looking for a hate to love
Yeah.
story.
So for those who are watching this and don't know who Dante is, he is the Christian pro golfer who sent the inappropriate text and got kicked off the campaign in the beginning. And that just worked out really well because Kai from the beginning, if you read Husband Auditions, Kai does have this connection to a golf course. And so, I mean, I hadn't planned this. I had to change my character from a football player to a golfer, but it just fit so well. And I love it when that happens in the writing process.
Yeah. That is an amazing feeling when you're writing and things just tie together like that. You're like, oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Frivolous question: is sunflower seed pizza a thing? Like, is that a real thing?
It is. So I actually went to elementary school in Kansas, and then my family moved to Oregon, and I hadn't been back to Kansas for 30 years. And I met a writer friend who lived there, and she's like, fly out, I'll show you around. So I flew out, and we did go to Wichita, and we did see sunflower seed pizza, and we did walk out to, there's that statue of the giant Indian that's in there, the keeper of the plains. And so we did walk out to that. So it was really cool being able to tie my childhood with Nicole's childhood and then my college years with Charlie's college years.
Oh.
Yeah, you're going to have to try it. Cool. I tried it. It was good. Sunflower seeds on the pizza.
Well, now, on the podcast, we did Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, and I bought
that's a Turkish delight.
I bought Turkish Delight from a candy store in Turkey. It was obscenely expensive, but yeah. So yeah, and so like on the podcast, like if there's something in the book like that kind of sticks out. So in the back of my mind, just briefly, I thought I'm gonna make sunflower seed pizza. I'm gonna find a recipe online, But then I was like, Brett, get over it.
That's
Cooking.
probably going to be a lot of work.
Yeah. That's why I didn't do it. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to go buy the ingredients and take it to the local pizza place and see if they'll make it for us. And well, that didn't happen either. So.
Okay. So I want to know about the Turkish delight. Was it delicious?
There were a couple that, I mean, they were fine. There was one that I couldn't even eat. It was just not, I didn't even get my teeth into it. I got it this far and then I was like, oh no, the smell it was a rose flavored thing. It had actual little rose petals on it. And I like roses. They're beautiful, but even the smell, I was like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it sounds pretty, but not like something I'd want to eat.
Yeah. And there were a couple of them that I thought were good, but I think the general consensus was that we would not sell out our siblings for
Turkish delight.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe some peanut butter cups or
yeah.
That's funny.
Have you ever seen the movie the Chronicles of Narnia movie? The first one?
Yeah.
Okay, in the movie when he gets into the sled with her and he eats the Turkish delight and it's real stringy and gooey.
It's very gooey.
Oh.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah, well, no, that's what I thought it was going to be.
Oh.
Yeah, it was little cubes and it was almost kind of like a tough jelly. It was nothing like the texture in the movie. So that kind of disappointed me because that real stringy Turkish delight just looked really good.
So either the movie is wrong or we needed to order Turkish delight from the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
I always pictured it as applets or cotlets, which are from the Pacific Northwest. Have you heard of those? Cotlets and applets?
No.
So sounds like it'd be a little bitty tart of some kind.
Nope, it's like the cube, like you were saying. It's like a cube of jelly, like the apple, and then the cotlets. Cotlets is maybe peach or apricot. That makes more sense.
Huh.
Apricot cotlets. So that's just how I always pictured it.
Huh.
And they're a fun treat, but not something I'd sell my family out for either.
Yeah, exactly. Give me chocolate and eat it. It was fun. It was a fun experiment to try it.
For sure.
But yeah, I'm a chocolate. Just give me chocolate and we're good. Yeah.
Some Lindor or.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of like getting thrown in the trunk of a car, eating Turkish delight.
Exactly, yeah. And then when we had Angela Hunt on, in her books, her historical fiction books, the Emissary series, they talk a lot about honey water.
Yes.
So I did make us some honey water. We wound up not drinking it during the podcast because we had so much to talk about. We never got to it. But
yeah,
it tasted like honey water. So I wasn't too impressed with it.
That's probably good for your throat. That might be good for podcasting.
I'm sure it would
help
some
with phlegm or whatever.
Honey and lemon and some hot water.
Yeah, and as a singer, I've done thin down lemon and honey. You warm it up to where it's thin and drink it. Yeah, so yeah.
Soothe your vocal cords.
Yeah. So, but as soon as I read that sunflower seed pizza, I was like, okay, we might need to make that for the podcast. But I wasn't that.
I've had cauliflower.
Or if you ever go to Kansas, look for it in Kansas. What was that, Melanie? I didn't hear you.
I've had the cauliflower crust, but I've never had a sunflower.
Mm.
So actually what I had, it wasn't sunflower crust. It was sunflowers sprinkled on top. Sunflower seeds. Okay.
So is it just like regular pizza crust, just with sunflower seeds sprinkled on it? That's kind of what it was. Okay, see, I wasn't sure if it was that or if it was sometimes how they'll grind up nuts or something and put that in it to make up for not having flour. I didn't know if it was something like that too.
Right, and that's what Gemma thought too, because she can't have wheat.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gemma, interestingly enough, it struck me during the passage when Charlie's talking about they're in church and he's talking about worship and how Gemma had mentioned to him the way she looked at worship, saying it's a way, she uses it as a way to come up with ideas for writing. She calls it creating with the creator. Mm-hmm. And that was, it kind of made me, I just had to stop and think about it for a little bit because I have trouble concentrating. Mm-hmm. My mind wanders and I'm like, oh, no. I need to be focused. I need to be focused on the praise, and I need to be focused on the prayer, and my mind tends to wander too much, and I always get onto myself. So I found it interesting that she looks at that way, because it's not something I'd ever considered. I just considered, wow, you really need to work on this. You're a horrible person because you can't concentrate on anything.
I totally relate to that. Yeah, so I'm like that too, Melanie. But it was my friend Betsy St. Amant. I don't know if you've read any of her books, but I remember her saying that one day. Yeah, and she mentioned like how God downloads these ideas to her when she's worshiping in church, and then I was like, oh, that's okay. Like, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, if I have a thought outside of what's going on at church, I feel like a horrible person.
Yeah.
It's harder for me to concentrate with prayer than it is during, praise and worship, but it still wanders during praise and worship too. And I'm just like, I need to concentrate.
Yeah.
My thoughts aren't where they're supposed to be.
The idea was new to me, and I was like, is that okay? And I mentioned it to my dad, who was a pastor, and I was like, what do you think about thinking about my book while we're singing? And he was like, oh yeah, like he loved the idea of creating with the creator. So I did run it past, for theology check before I shared that in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. Well, and I don't know about you, but as an author, you just can't get away from your books. You try, because sometimes you immerse yourself so much into that world. Sometimes you would just love to get out of it for a while, but you just can't. Do you find it hard to take yourself out of that world?
Oh yeah.
I know you everywhere.
Yeah. And especially when I have a deadline and I'm writing constantly. I mean, there'll be times where my husband and I are sitting at dinner and he says, what are you thinking about? And we're eating wings, like hot wings. And I'm like, I was wondering if my characters would eat hot wings. And he's so sweet. He's like, yeah, that's important. Like he rolls with it.
The life of being married to an author. Yeah. So how do you is there a certain time when you get most of your ideas? We sort of touched on this on the last podcast. For some reason, I tend to I wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, boing, there's, and I'm like, I used to keep a pad and pen by the bed. Of course, now with cell phones, you can just turn on your voice notes and be like, and kind of get it out of your head. But is there any particular time when ideas come to you more than other times, or is it just kind of a free for all?
A lot of the stories that happen in books are things that I've experienced or heard and just filed away without knowing that I'm filing them away. And then as I'm writing the book, they just seem to fit really well. Like the scene with Nicole and Charlie dancing salsa, and Charlie can't dance for one, and he's literal for two. So when she tells him, to dance the merengue, you just march. And in her mind, you roll your hips and you kind of go to the beat. In his mind, you salute and then march like an army man.
Yeah.
That really happened. I experienced that, and really? I was like, that's too good not to go in a book.
Yes. And
my kids know this about me. So if they tell me a story, they'll be like, Mom, that's my story. You can't use that in the book. And my oldest daughter, she went and visited Grand Canyon University in the cadaver lab, and a girl, because she wanted to go into medicine, and a girl on the tour fainted and face planted in a human heart. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
And she's like, no, Mom, nope, this is my story. You can't use it.
So are you going to, though? That's the question.
No. I mean, if she claims it as hers, then I just have to tell it on podcasts.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry, friends and family, I'm just saying, if it happens, it's fair game.
Life is just so entertaining and unexpected, and there's just some stuff I couldn't make up. I have to get the ideas from real life.
Yeah. In my first book, A Christmas to Live For, the character's mom, I made her sort of just a real quirky, not really airheaded, but she was just a very quirky personality. And after Mom read it, she was like, I'm not like that, am I? I said, no, Mom, that was not modeled after you. She was like, oh, good. She said, I was hoping that's not what people think of me. I was like,
Oh,
no.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had experiences like that too.
Yeah.
That's funny because, that my favorite author, in her books all the time, there's always he's a writer. You got to watch yourself around him or you're going to wind up in one of his books.
Well, and it's true.
Be careful around so-and-so. Ellen Montgomery. She wrote the Anne of Green Gables books and all the others. So, but yeah, in several of her books, there's someone in there. Oh, it's a writer. Watch what you do around them. They'll put you in one of their books.
We have keen powers of observation.
Yeah, I do have a shirt that says that. It's something like that. Yeah, that's great.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I always say, if people can recognize themselves in your book, then you haven't done a good enough job. So
that's good. I'm going to remember that. Yeah.
Now, one thing I think one of my favorite parts about the book was the end with when we kind of learned the backstory about Nicole and her dad. That was my favorite part of the book. And we're not going to say much about that because that's sort of, I loved that part of the book.
I do think that was the crying point for me.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, honestly, Nicole and her dad, that could be another book. Like that would be a great another
Probably
book.
Could.
Yeah.
Probably good. But yes.
Yeah, and that was something I wrestled with. And because I do want to put my characters in tough situations where you don't, like the reader doesn't know the right thing to do. Like, which way do they go? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to end. And so to do that as an author, I really have to wrestle with those things. And so I was on a trip and I was in Asheville, North Carolina. Is that North Carolina? South Carolina?
Yes.
I get the north and south mixed up.
North Carolina.
Okay.
Because I think they're flooding right now.
Author Pepper Basham lives there. Yeah, and she's dealing with the hurricane right now, I believe. Have you guys read any of her books?
I've not. I've got what's the first one in the Loyally Luke series? Authentically Is He? I've got that book in my Kindle, but I haven't read it yet.
Yes, that's a good one. So I was in Asheville and her and I went out to eat and I told her about this scene and I was like, I'm really wrestling with how to do this. And she's the one who gave me the idea for what the pastor says at the end.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That was just, I loved it.
It's good to wrestle those things out with other writers and get different perspectives because it's so easy to get stuck when you're like in the story. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I love creating sort of a network of authors because it's just nobody can give you feedback and it's nice to have somebody in the business, in the industry to run things past because nobody thinks like an author does, so I've enjoyed kind of growing my network of authors and so
that's like the best part.
It is. Yeah. I've made some really good author friends and ready to get put more in the circle. So okay, so is there anything else you wanted to say about Fiancé? Specifically, is there anything else you wanted to cover on that?
No. Oh, I did go. So you saw you remember the Tahitian pearls that she wears? You can kind of see them. I love that they put them on her.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
I didn't catch that.
Okay. Yeah, that they're on the cover. I know. You have to read the story and then really. So I'd researched Tahitian pearls, but I'd never actually seen them in person. So I was on an overnight for work in Monterey, California, and there was a pearl store. And I went in and I got to see Tahitian pearls and find out, how much they really were, like $15,000 for a strand of those.
Wow.
So anyway, that was just like a surreal moment to like get to experience what my character experienced.
And of course you had to buy a couple strands, right?
30 grand. Yeah.
Let's all get
Now, the pearls in the book were black. Am I remembering that right?
Yes.
Are all Tahitian pearls black?
When I was looking at them, it looks like the most expensive ones were, but then there was cheaper
Oh.
ones that were kind of different shades of black that you could get.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they're pretty rare, which makes them more interesting, I think.
Yeah, yeah. There was something else I was going to say before.
I did have a couple of things, and one is very frivolous, and one is not. The
Awesome.
non-frivolous one first. There's a lesson in here that I think everyone learns sooner or later. Sometimes when you're a kid, and sometimes when you're an adult. It's that moment you realize when your parents aren't perfect. I mean, you probably come to that realization as a kid at some point, but when there's something that happens when you're older and you're like, oh, that just kind of fundamentally shakes. It's kind of almost earth shattering in a way. Cause I love my parents. My parents are, but something always happens, whether it's something they say or something you find out what they think, or and you're just like, oh wait, I don't believe that. How is it that I don't understand where you're coming from on this? And it's just kind of you got to wrestle with it.
And it probably happens right around the same time that you realize, oh, I don't know it all either. You know?
Yeah. But it's just kind of everyone deals with it. And sometimes it's not, a horrible thing, but it's kind of a milestone, I think, for everybody. And this book touches on that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And her dad was a pastor. So I think that makes it even more painful.
That gives it an extra layer.
Yeah. Somebody who's taught you your whole foundation of believing in Jesus, and then they don't live what they taught you.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be
so
pretty
it's not
earth-shattering.
it's not just a parent, it's also your spiritual leader, and that's a double whammy.
Yeah. Well, and and I'm not a PK, a preacher's kid, but I know several of them, and pastors and their families have a lot of there's a lot of
pressure,
expectation placed upon them.
There is. I'm married to a PK. So
yeah.
Okay.
Married to a preacher's kid, a preacher's grandkid, possibly a preacher's great grandkid. It's a line of preacher's nephew.
Did he have pressure to become a preacher?
No. Okay. I don't believe he did. If he did, he's never talked to me about it, and we've known each other since high school. So
yeah.
I don't think there was ever, more of a, if he did, that'd be great, but not a full on.
You've missed your calling, son.
Yeah. No, I was around his parents from senior year in high school, so I never heard anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would know.
They're both pastors, so it's just not something. I don't think I don't think it's something he ever really considered, and I don't think it's something he likes being outside too much. I think it's understood that if he could find something to do outdoors, which he didn't, but if he could, he would be doing it for sure. He'd be working for Game and Fish or something.
Yeah.
But the frivolous thing, there's a part in the book where they're talking about eye makeup on a man being attractive. And I don't know if you've ever seen the show Once Upon a Time. About the fairy tales.
It sounds familiar. Is it a movie or a TV show? It's a TV show?
It was a TV show. Yeah, it's been off for several years.
Oh, yes. My daughters watch it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. She mentioned that, and the first person that popped in my head, I was like, oh, Hook. There's a character called, because it's all based off fairy tales and Disney stuff. And
my girls have mentioned Hook.
It's like, yeah, Captain Hook with the eye makeup. Yeah.
I'm going to go look him up now. Yeah, I have.
Hey, I did have one.
Thing?
Oh yeah. Definitely better than the animated Hook for sure.
Okay.
I did want to ask you one thing. on one of your recent social media posts, you mentioned something, and I can't even remember what it was. Something about something exciting happened in the airport. What was that about? Do you remember?
Oh, where
I'm
I
intrigued.
signed a contract for my next book?
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Oh,
So my next series will be Flight Attendants. It's a duology. There'll be 2 books about
fun.
flight attendants in a crash pad in Seattle. And if you don't know what a crash pad is, it's where if you are based in a place that you don't live, you rent like a 2-bedroom with 9 other people.
Oh, wow.
And that's where you crash when you fly into town to work. Yeah, so I lived that way for 2 months. I was in a 2-bedroom apartment with 9 other women. And
there's a lot of drama and capability there.
Yeah, there's stories you can't make up. So I'm really excited to get to write about it.
Oh, that sounds fun.
They're based in Seattle like me, so I did sign at the Seattle airport just because I felt like it was fitting. And so that'll probably be coming out not till the beginning of 2026, I think. But in the meantime, for that year, on my newsletter, I'm going to be doing giveaways every month called Flight Attendant Finds, where I give away things that I found on my journey. So the first one that I gave away, and I gave this away before I signed the contract or made the announcement because I couldn't wait to give it away. But it was a book bag from I ended up going to Thomas Jefferson's house. I mentioned that earlier, but one of his quote is, "I cannot live without books." And so it's a book bag with his quote on it.
Oh,
but
fun.
so for this, so for this month, because I just signed the contract, I am doing giveaways from Seattle. So if people want to join my newsletter, you can do that at my website, which is angelaruthstrong.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good deal. Yeah.
There won't be $15,000 strands of Tahitian pearls, but hopefully I can find some other fun things.
Let's keep our expectations in check.
Yeah.
So, well, I really enjoyed this book, and I'm not a romance. Romance is not typically my go-to. It's not my go-to genre. But there really needs to be more books like this because I just don't like all the smoochy, kissy. I just don't like all that. And I love this book because there was none of that. It was just, there was, there needs to be more rom-coms rather than romance. So good job.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Romance should be fun.
Yeah,
it should be fun.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be all dramatic and because
it's nice to have. Yeah, every once in a while you get in a mood for an angsty.
Yeah.
Oh, will they ever find their way to each other? Type thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's nice to be light and fun too. There's a reason rom-coms are successful in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Now they haven't been making very many good ones lately.
No,
it feels like
I don't think they've made a good one since the 90s.
Can you not drop the F-bomb in my romantic comedy, please?
Yeah.
Every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But you got your classics, your Sleepless in Seattle, and it can be fun. Doesn't always have to be vulgar or dramatic or full of heartbreak.
And I will say, I the first one of your books I read was Fiancé Finale. And so I would recommend that people go back and probably start with the first book. But I really didn't have any trouble following it. I was able to keep up with who is who. So, but I'll probably go back and.
I figured the supporting characters. Like, well, this is third book, so I'm thinking the supporting characters in this probably played a leading part in the first 2.
Yeah, exactly. I brought them all together in the epilogue.
Yeah. So, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it too.
I saw your review, so thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, but
you were number one. You were my first review out there. So
I was number one. Yeah. And sometimes those reviews are hard to get. I'm like, if everybody that read the book would give a review, I would have tons of reviews. But anyway, I thought we'd just end up with a couple of just kind of quick general questions. So, what book are you currently reading right now, if anything?
Well, I just read a book on my trip in our Mile High Book Club so I just finished it 2 days ago, but I read it in 24 hours. It was really, really good. And there's an Apple TV show based on it. And it was called The Last Thing He Told Me. Have you heard of that one? It's in the
No.
Reese
I've
Book
heard of
Club.
Oh, okay. No.
So she marries a man who has a teenage daughter, and her and the teenage daughter don't get along very well, and then the man goes missing. And so her and the
Ooh.
teenage daughter have to like join forces to find out where he went. So I really enjoyed that. I do
Interesting.
read a lot of rom-com, but I like to read some thrillers and suspense, kind of to cleanse my palate a little bit.
Yeah. That's my jam. Thriller, suspense, mystery.
Okay, you would like this one.
Yeah.
It is in a female point of view, so I don't know if you'd connect as well, but it is really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I find in Christian fiction, there are very few books that really focus on men. It's like pretty much all Christian fiction is from the female perspective. So so I've kind of gotten used to that, so it doesn't bother me.
Well, okay, so then I recommend Peter Lavelle, who is the historical author that makes his debut in fiction in Husband Auditions. He writes westerns.
Oh, okay.
So you might enjoy that.
Oh, does he? Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
Westerns.
he won Jerry B. Jenkins' Operation First Novel a while ago.
Oh, fun.
Oh.
Yeah. And I always am looking for male authors because, again, I write Christian fiction, and I feel like I'm a very rare breed in Christian fiction because it's mostly female authors.
Right.
So always looking for a male author to read and to include on the podcast, because I feel like male authors, we're such unicorns in Christian fiction that I want to support them. So.
Okay, so
yeah.
check out one of his books, and maybe you'll want to interview him.
I will. Well, yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah,
Did you write that down?
I
Okay,
did.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite genre to read? I mean, you said you like thrillers. Do you have just like a favorite, or do you just like to mix it up?
Rom-com would be my favorite. When I first started writing, it was back in the earlier 2000s, and it was called chick lit at that time. And what I really liked about chick lit is I like the first person point of view. I prefer that. And then I liked that it wasn't only about the guy. It was about more than just the guy. Like I remember reading a book by Hope Lyda where the guy doesn't show up till halfway through the book. And you can't do that in a traditional romance.
Yeah.
No.
So I felt like it went a little bit deeper, but then chick lit was overdone and kind of became a thing of the past. So I feel like this reemergence of rom-com is the chance to do that.
Yeah.
To have fun while going deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't see why you can't do that. Yeah.
Because you can have a story with a guy in it and still have it be about love, but it doesn't have to focus on just the relationship with the guy.
Yeah.
It can be about
I like to
growth
think of
and
Christian fiction
self-discovery.
isn't about a guy falling in love with a girl. It's more about a girl finding out how loved she already is by God.
Yeah.
I like
God
that
is love.
perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I like that.
So, as an author, what's one of the most surprising things that you've learned about being an author that you didn't know before you were one?
I just heard somebody say this the other day, and I was like, oh, that's so true. We have to keep secrets. It's so hard for me to keep secrets. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys a secret right now. My daughter, I can say this because this won't air until after today, but my daughter's getting proposed to today.
Woo!
Oh.
And she came over last night, and I was like, I can't talk. I know. I was like trying so hard not to say anything, but I'm really bad at secrets. And when you know that you have a contract coming for a book and you can't say anything, or like I have some books with movie producers looking at them, and I can't tell you. It's really like even just keeping the spoilers to myself is so hard. You have to be able to keep secrets.
Yeah, you do.
It's hard. You're correct.
Yeah, very much. Okay, rapid publishing. The trend of rapid publishing. What do you think about that? I've got an author friend. I am not exaggerating. She publishes like 5 or 6 books a year. I don't know how in the world she does it. What do you think about that?
I have some friends who do it very well, and it works very well for them. One of them, her husband was able to quit his job just to support her career, and I think that's amazing. I don't think I could do that. I think you have to be really good at the business side of things. which I like. Talking about business makes me want to punch things. I'm not good at that.
Me either. Yeah, me either.
Yeah. And I used to write a lot faster. So back before I went through chemo, I probably would have thought, okay, I could do that someday. But I just write slower now. And so it's not for me. So rapid publishing is great for those it works for. And I'm not one of them.
Yeah, me either. I sometimes I'm sweating it just to get one a year out. One a year is about, although in 2025, my goal is to get 2 out. I've got one that I'm going to publish, and then I would like to publish the first book of a new series. I'm not a series person. I get so bored with series books.
I love series.
But I'm working on a series. I've got the first book completely written, and the second book in the series I've already completed. I finished it last week, and so I've got the first 2 in the series, and I know there's at least going to be a third. So my goal is to my 2025 one will be out in the spring, and then my goal is to have the first book of the series maybe in the fall or end of 2025. I don't know if I'll be able to do it or not, but that's my goal.
Have I read the first book?
I love that you guys have different perspectives on series. Like that just shows that there's room for everyone.
Exactly.
I like to think of standalones as more like a movie, and then series more like a TV show. And I think if you prefer the series, that does make it easier to write faster. And so then rapid publishing might be a better option for you.
Yeah.
I prefer movies to TV shows.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I just even if I absolutely love a book and it's got, there are very rarely do I ever finish a series. And if I do finish a series, like if I do read the entire series, like I may read book 1, wait 3 or 4 months and read book 2. Like I get so bored with them. So
yeah.
Is that the one I read?
And I definitely get bored writing them.
Is that the one I better read earlier?
No, you mean the series?
Yeah.
Well, War Songs, that's a series. That's a duology. There may be a third one at some point. That's a spiritual warfare series of books. No, you haven't read the series yet.
Oh, okay.
I haven't even started the editing process yet. So, yeah.
Okay.
So tell listeners who would like to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
AngelaRuthStrong.com. Through my website, you can find the links to my Facebook and my Instagram and my other social medias. So,
okay.
All right. And my newsletter. I'd love for you to come sign up for my newsletter.
Reminder of where we are.
So we're on Facebook and on Instagram as Bookish Introverts Podcast. You can email us at bookishintrovertspodcast@gmail.com. So that's where you can find us.
Yes, and we're not sure which book will be the next one. I think there's a couple under debate. So, but you'll know when we release that podcast.
Yeah.
And we just want to thank Angela for taking time to be with us today. It was a pleasure.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being my first review. Thank you for adjusting your schedule when I got called out to work. So it's been an honor to be here with you today. And I wish you guys the best with your podcast and your books.
Yes, you too. We'll be following you to see what's going along with you.
So
all right, sounds good.
We will be seeing you guys later, and thank you for watching.
All right.
And listening.
Thanks for joining us on the Bookish Introverts Podcast, where together we explore the worlds within the pages. Until next time, stay bookish.